I didn't mean to start an interstellar incident. Honestly, I just wanted a sandwich. The mess hall of the starship Asterion was unusually quiet for a Tuesday cycle. Half the crew was still down on Theta 9, retrieving mineral samples from the acidic canyons, and the rest were probably sleeping off the night's synth ale from the lounge deck. I'd been up for nearly 20 hours running diagnostic checks on the ship's navigational grid, and by the time I stumbled into the mess, I was running on fumes and caffeine patches. That's when I first saw her, Kira of Velis Prime. To most of the crew, she was just the alien girl, though that label never sat right with me. Kira wasn't even that alien-looking. If you ignored the soft opal shimmer of her skin, the faintly glowing veins near her temples, and the eyes that looked like they'd been carved from polished amethyst. She joined our mission 3 months earlier as a liaison from the Velian Accord, a diplomatic species known for their intense emotional control and crystalline neural structures. In other words, they didn't do small talk, or humor, or apparently sandwiches. She was sitting at the far end of the mess, studying the replicator's output like it had just insulted her ancestors. I remember thinking how surreal it was, an advanced being capable of telepathic harmonization with a ship's AI, completely baffled by a grilled cheese. I tried not to laugh as I walked past her. She looked up briefly, those gemstone eyes reflecting the overhead lights. "Good morning, Kira," I mumbled, punching in my usual order on the replicator panel. Or whatever counts as morning on this tin can. "Cycle 43, Segment 2, she said softly, tilting her head. "Your species calls that morning, yes." Chuckled. "Yeah, something like that." The replicator beeped, a tray sliding out with my steaming sandwich and a cup of synth coffee. I reached for it, barely awake, and muttered without thinking, "Thanks, love." It was something I said all the time. Throwaway phrase. A bit of Earth slang. But the moment the words left my mouth, I felt the temperature in the room drop about 10 degrees. Kira froze. Literally froze. Shoulders tense, eyes wide. The faint glow beneath her skin flickering like a power surge. Her voice came out in a whisper, barely audible. "You addressed me as bonded one." I blinked, halfway through sipping my coffee. What?" She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the metal floor. The few crew members nearby turned to look. Kira's pupils had dilated to the size of moons. On Velis Prime, that phrase, "Tanks love," is an ancient vow, spoken only between life partners. Almost choked. "Wait, what? No. I didn't mean." "It was casual for you," she said, her tone trembling between offense and something else. "You declare eternal bonding and then eat bread with melted fat?" It's just an expression," I stammered. "It doesn't mean anything like that." But she wasn't listening. She was trembling, hands clasped tight as if trying to process an impossible error. Then, without another word, she turned and fled the room. And that's how I accidentally proposed to an alien diplomat before breakfast. For the next few hours, the ship was a powder keg. Lieutenant Voss cornered me outside the command deck with a scowl. "What the hell did you say to her, Jalen?" "Nothing. I just said, 'Thanks, love.'" He groaned. "Great. Perfect. You just invoked a Velian soulbond phrase. Command's already in contact with their embassy." "I didn't invoke anything. I was just being polite." Voss rubbed his temples. "Well, polite or not, you've created a diplomatic incident. Velians take their bonding vows seriously. If she doesn't formally reject it, the Accord could interpret your words as a claim." "A claim? What am I, buying a used star cruiser?" "This isn't funny, Jalen. You might have just married her." By the time I found Kira again, she was in the observation dome, staring out at the endless sweep of the nebula we were passing through. Her skin shimmered faintly in the starlight, casting soft reflections on the glass. I approached cautiously. "Kira, look, I'm sorry. I didn't know what it meant." She didn't turn around. "Your ignorance does not nullify the vow." "That's fair," I admitted. "But I swear it was just a saying. A human thing." "I have been studying your idioms," she murmured, voice distant. "You call each other love, without meaning it. You use the term of eternal devotion as casual gratitude." When she said it like that, it sounded awful. I rubbed the back of my neck. "Yeah, I guess it's kind of dumb." She turned to face me then, her eyes luminous and unreadable. "On my world, words shape reality. A phrase spoken in sincerity can bind souls. We do not speak without consequence." "Well," I said with a weak smile, "on my world we speak all the time without consequence. Maybe that's the problem." She studied me for a long moment. Then, to my surprise, she smiled, barely, but it was there. "Perhaps there is merit in carelessness. It must be freeing." "Sometimes," I said softly. "Other times, it gets you in trouble with an intergalactic diplomat." Her laugh, a crystalline chime, brief and beautiful, echoed through the dome. For a moment the tension broke. We stood there, side by side, watching the nebula pulse and swirl beyond the glass. That's when the alarm blared. "Warning," the ship's AI intoned. "Unauthorized energy signature detected in lower engineering. Source, unknown." Voss's voice crackled over the intercom. "All hands to battle readiness. We've got intruders on board." Kira straightened immediately, the glow in her veins brightening. Velian sensors registered this frequency once before. "It belongs to the Rin Collective." My stomach sank. "Pirates." "Worse," she said grimly. "Harvesters. They drain ships for quantum cores and leave nothing but husks." We sprinted to the nearest lift. As it descended, the walls shuddered under an external impact. The lights flickered. Somewhere deep in the ship, metal screamed. When the doors opened, chaos met us. Plasma fire scorched the corridor, and 2 crew members were dragging an injured engineer toward the medbay. The air smelled of ozone and fear. Kira extended her hand, summoning a field of shimmering light. Velian energy manipulation, something between telekinesis and quantum resonance. "Stay behind me." "Like hell," I said, grabbing a plasma cutter from the wall. "If they're after our cores, they'll head straight for the reactor." We moved together, the unlikely pair. Me, a tired navigator with a tool in his hand, and her, a glowing alien diplomat with the power to bend matter. The first Rin appeared around the corner, a mass of armor and writhing tendrils. They moved like smoke, voices crackling in digital static. "Yield the ship," one hissed, "and your dissolution will be painless." Kira didn't answer. She raised her hands, and a wave of violet energy erupted outward, slamming into the attackers like a hurricane. Metal buckled. The Rin screeched, scattering like insects. I ducked behind a console. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." She glanced at me, smiling faintly. "Then do not make more vows you do not intend to keep." We fought our way through the corridors, a chaotic blur of motion and sound. At one point, I was thrown against the wall by a concussive blast. The plasma cutter skittered away. I scrambled to my feet, ears ringing, just in time to see a Rin raising its weapon toward Kira's back. Without thinking, I shouted, "Kira, down!" She turned, but too late. Instinct took over. I lunged forward, tackling her to the ground as a bolt of energy tore through the air where her chest had been. We hit the floor hard. Her skin glowed brighter from the adrenaline surge, casting our faces in violet light. She blinked up at me, breathless. You shielded me. Guess we're even, I said, grinning despite the pain. Bonded partners look out for each other, right? Her eyes widened again, but this time she didn't look offended. She just stared at me for a long moment, really stared like she was seeing something she hadn't before. Then she whispered, perhaps the vow was not misplaced after all. Before I could respond, she rolled to her feet and unleashed another wave of energy, driving the last of the Rin back toward the reactor's breach. Together we sealed the doors and vented the section, ejecting the pirates into the void. When silence finally returned, I slumped against the wall, panting. So, I said between breaths, still mad about the sandwich thing? Kira tilted her head, then smiled. Less so now. The next day, the Asterion limped in orbit over Theta 9 while the engineering teams repaired the hull. Command sent commendations to everyone who'd fought back the Rin attack, but somehow the biggest conversation on the ship wasn't about the battle. It was about us. Apparently, the Velian embassy had already logged the vow incident, and now half the crew was jokingly referring to me as the ambassador's husband. Someone even left a congratulatory note taped to my console. It read, "Don't forget the anniversary, love." I groaned. I'm never living this down. Kira appeared beside me, her steps silent. Humans are peculiar, she said softly. You make humor from discomfort. It's how we cope, I said. You should try it. I may. I pause. However, the Council has requested clarification. They believe our bond may have diplomatic ramifications. I rubbed my face. Please tell me I'm not actually married. In the Velian sense, she said carefully, a vow cannot be undone, but it can be fulfilled. I blinked. Fulfilled how? She hesitated. By living up to it. By proving that the connection spoken was not false. So I have to actually be your partner. She nodded once, her gaze steady. Or the Council will interpret the vow as deception, a grave insult. Decide. Of course. Because things weren't complicated enough. The following weeks were a blur of awkward meals, joint assignments, and confusing cultural exchanges. Kira insisted we perform daily synchronization meditations, which apparently helped Velians attune to their bonded partners' neural rhythms. I wasn't sure if it worked, but I did start dreaming in shades of violet. Somewhere between mission reports and long nights in the observation dome, the whole thing stopped feeling like an accident. I started looking forward to seeing her. She laughed more now, her once formal demeanor softening bit by bit. And maybe, just maybe, I stopped pretending it was just a misunderstanding. One night, while the Asterion drifted near the edge of an uncharted nebula, we sat watching the stars. Kira turned to me, her voice soft. You have changed since that morning. So have you, I said. You stopped looking at me like I was a diplomatic disaster. She smiled. You stopped being one. Silence stretched between us, comfortable and strange. Then she said quietly, You spoke your vow by accident. But in Velian law, intention can be shaped by choice. If you wish, the bond may yet become real. My heart thudded. You mean, actually mean it? She met my gaze, eyes shimmering like starlight. Do you? For once, I didn't try to joke my way out. I thought of that morning in the mess hall, the absurdity of it all, the danger we'd faced, the way she'd laughed for the first time. And I realized that somehow, impossibly, I did mean it. I reached out, taking her hand. Her skin was cool and smooth, humming faintly with energy. Thanks, love, I said softly, this time on purpose. Her breath caught, and her eyes widened again, but not in confusion. The glow beneath her skin brightened, spreading outward like sunrise. "Now," she whispered, "you understand the words." And when our hands met, the space around us shimmered. For a heartbeat, I saw the universe unfold, stars blooming like flowers, nebulae twisting in silent song. The bond wasn't just symbolic. It was real, tangible, alive. Two consciousnesses touching across the void. When it faded, she was smiling, tears like liquid crystal tracing down her cheeks. "You are bound to me now, Jalen of Earth." "Guess that makes it official," I said, still dazed. "Just promise me one thing." "What is that?" "No sandwiches at the ceremony." In the years that followed, the vow incident became a running joke across the United Federation. Diplomatic treaties referenced it as a case study in cross-cultural semantic hazards. But for us it was just how we met. We commanded the Asterian II together eventually, a joint human-Velian vessel built for exploration beyond the known rim. Whenever new crew members came aboard and asked how their captains first bonded, Kira would just smile and say, "He offered me gratitude." And I'd add, "And she saved my life." Twice. They'd laugh thinking it was a story. But sometimes late at night, when the stars glowed against the hull and her hand found mine, I'd remember that first casual morning and the way the words had changed everything. "Thanks, love," I'd whisper again. And she'd always smile. "You still do not know what those words mean." "Maybe not," I'd admit. "But I'm learning."